Good morning, everybody. It is Monday, and you know I love a Monday. And Coco and I are headed to work via McDonald's. And yes, I'll just be getting my unsweet iced tea because I've decided I got to be back on Whole30 at least for a week or two of pure, unadulterated Whole30 with no cheating. So we're heading to get an unsweet tea. And it's a very rare day here. You guys need to see we have a visitor. As you know, we don't often have guest visitors here in the car. But this is Wes's my son Bridger, and he is down visiting for a few days and kind of shadowing and seeing what it's like down here in AC Media Land. So we're on our way to an early morning. You guys know I'm not normally on this early, but we have our normal 9 o'clock meeting, and we've got a 10 o'clock, so that meant AC Media got to go to 8 o'clock. So that's pretty early. So I was thinking along those lines over the last couple of days. I've been watching some Gary Vee talking about the specificity of the ads you run. So I think it's applicable to people who don't run ads. It's kind of life in general. It's about how specific are you versus how vague are you. So one thing I started thinking is, have you heard the expression, let's see, what is it? Life rewards the specific ask and punishes the vague wish. So I think a lot of times this is our problem, and that's kind of where I got the title, Are Your Dreams Killing Your Happiness? Do you have a vague wish or a vague desire? Or do you really sit there and go, here's what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do specifically. And you know why we don't want to do that sometimes? It's because then we're held accountable. People know if we fail or not. Gary Vee's always talking about his goal of buying the New York Jets. And he says, you know, by saying that, I'm really putting myself out there, right? Because then I could be called a failure. So I think a lot of us sit back and have these dreams of grandeur. We're going to be this. We're going to do that. We're going to start a business. We're going to leave our steady job, all of which are great things. I've done all those things. But at the same time, what I want you guys to think about is, if you're self-aware, as we've talked about the Rich Dad, Poor Dad guide multiple times on this show, if you are self-aware, you need to know whether that's the right thing for you. And if it's not, then is your dream of doing that a nice, enjoyable, fantasy place where you go just to give yourself something you think about that's nice? Or is it really making you dissatisfied with maybe what's meant to be your actual life? Maybe you're meant to be an employee, being a CEO of a company. Maybe you're meant to be mid-level management, and that is your happy place, and that's where you're going to succeed the best. Because as you know, I always harp on self-awareness. That's the one thing we have to have here, guys, most importantly, because if you're meant to be a CEO, be a CEO. If you are meant to be a school teacher, be the best one on the planet. If you want to be an entrepreneur, God help you, because you're going down a rough road and you're going to spend a lot of time in prayer and you're going to have a tough time. I was reminded this morning, you know, if you're an employee and you go on vacation, you go on vacation for the most part. If you're an entrepreneur and you go on vacation, nothing really stops, right? The reports keep coming in, and that's not a complaint. It's just a reality. So I want you to be thinking about that. I think too many of us live in the dream situation instead of what's really going on in our lives. Bridger, with you coming back from Argentina, Bridger just got back, what, 2 or 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, and he spent 2 years in Argentina, if you can imagine. He did not speak Spanish. He did not do well in his Spanish classes in high school.
I failed it in junior high.
Okay, there we go.
Junior high Spanish.
Yes, and now he does very well. Let's say something to our folks. Welcome our drive folks with your newfound language skills.
Hola, buenos días.
You can do more than that. Come on, tell them to follow their dreams.
¿Qué quieres que diga? Bueno, siguen sus sueños y escucha las palabras de ella. Es muy inteligente.
I know what that means. And so the great thing is, you know, I mean, Bridger, you're an example of someone coming back, having to start kind of from a baseline, from scratch. So, I mean, what are your dreams at this stage? Because we'll have this now on film, and you can look back in 2 years and go, wow, I'm either on path or, boy, I got to get my act together. Where are you going to go from here?
Oh, wow. Putting me really on the spot.
Yeah, he didn't know we were doing this, guys.
My dreams. Jeez. I don't know.
Well, let's.
Are we going basic? Or like
narrow it in. Narrow it in.
Deep into
narrow it in.
like
talking
what?
Business here, right? Like as far as your career wise.
Be able to sustain myself. That's a good one.
There you go.
Become self-sufficient.
Yep.
But that's a short-term goal, like within a couple of years.
Yep.
But long-term wise, just really finding the balance between something that I like to work in and something that benefits me economically.
And don't you think that's kind of where everyone sits these days, is this argument about passion versus skill?
Yeah.
And really, that's where you got to go. You got to go to the place where the intersection of passion and skill. Because without passion, you won't succeed. Because the bottom line is, without the passion, you won't work as hard as you will, because it won't feel like work. I mean, if you love something, you won't feel like work. You want a burrito? About a burrito and a bottle of water?
Could I just get a water and like sausage, egg, and cheese?
Sausage, egg, and cheese McMuffin or biscuit?
McMuffin? No, McGriddle.
McGriddle?
Yeah.
Sausage, egg, and cheese McGriddle, a bottle of water, and a large unsweet tea.
Anything else?
That's it.
Well, like the big problem I've seen is just everyone wants, like you said, to be an entrepreneur, but they don't realize what that entails.
Yeah, right.
And no one really wants to put in the work or anything.
And they don't want to take the extraordinarily high risk of failure.
Yeah.
And it's a never-ending risk of failure, but it's also, it's how you look at it. I look at it, it's always a huge risk of reward. There's opportunity for reward. But we live in 2018, and I promise you, once you arrive, you haven't, Coco, you still, look at this, she's climbing up my shoulder to go see McDonald's. You still haven't really arrived, because everything's changing constantly. And we always talk about, Gary Vee says, you better be trying to put yourself out of business every day. Meaning, think about what the disruptor is that's going to ruin your business, because if you aren't thinking it, all your competition is. They're all thinking it, right? So what are your next steps right now going to be?
Well,
First steps, let's say.
first steps, well, the other day we sent my college application.
Yeah.
So that's an important thing, getting an education, I figure. Because I've kind of not been doing that for the past 2 years. Down there in Argentina, just been missionarying.
Yep.
But
And y'all know, as an aside there, y'all know how I feel about college and its overall value. However, I think everyone needs to have the opportunity to do it, and if it works for them, it works for me. It was great. It was easy. But this guy, I'm telling you, he's got entrepreneurial blood, so we'll see how that goes. But, 4 years is short, and if that makes you feel good and you want to do it, as Gary Vee says, go have a vacation, get your paper, do whatever, and then get ready to just crush it after that. So,
yeah.
After that, any thoughts?
Well, hopefully I can get more of a solid plan down. This is kind of embarrassing.
It's not embarrassing, because how can you know? You haven't even started. How can you know?
Yeah, like I have a desire to go into marketing, to start something with that, but towards entrepreneurship, I do not think I'm ready to rethink the wheel or anything. So.
Well, and we talk a lot about, Wes has always said this, and I think it's really good advice. He says, to be an entrepreneur, you've really got to be in something long enough to start seeing the gaps. We started Absolute Charm B&B reservation service years ago because I saw a gap that I knew we could fill that wasn't being done. I knew the market would love it. When we went to real estate, we looked at the marketing side. We sensed there was a gap we could fill. So we didn't just say, let's roll some dice and pull something out of a hat to say that's a business we're going to start. We started dipping our toe and working in it long enough to go, there's something missing there, right? And this is when some of this came up too. I'll tell y'all, I was watching a great clip this morning talking about, why are you running your ads to 18 to 35-year-old men? Those are two very different dudes, right? An 18-year-old and a 35-year-old. He said no. He's brilliant. Gary Vee, as usual, I'm talking about, said, and it was so obvious but so brilliant, he said, create the ad, then create the content. Create the ad set. Create who you're marketing to. Who are you not crushing it with? Who are you not winning with? Create that ad. If it's 18 to 21-year-old men, that's a much narrower target. Then start your ad, make all of the content go around what would resonate with them. Don't do what a 35-year-old dad is going to want to hear. Two different things. So that really made me start thinking, because I've been thinking this lately anyway. As you guys know, we are really talking about expanding the Absolute Charm real estate brand nationwide, because we finally have a platform to do that. And that's very exciting. But I said, what's holding me back, and I'm figuring it out now, is because I need to make one set of content for individual agents. I need a completely different set of content for team leaders, because the questions are different. And if you are an individual and you're in San Diego and you want to be part of Absolute Charm Real Estate Group via the EXP platform, so that we can give you that, you don't really care about how to deal with your team under you right now, right? I need to be able to shorten that content and make it meaningful to you guys. If you're a team leader, you've got a lot of tough questions to answer. And so that's what we're really going to start doing, is breaking down the content. Now, Bridger, we're going to do a really good test on you here and see, because I always put people on the spot about self-awareness. There you go. How self-aware are you? What are your best skills? What are you good at?
Jeez, that's a tough one. I'm not good at that. I know I'm not good at this. That's one thing.
You're not good at self-awareness or extemporaneous figure this out?
Knowing what I'm good at
Okay.
and being put on the spot.
Okay, good.
Geez.
We're getting somewhere. I love it.
Jeez, that's one thing I know I'm not good at.
Okay,
so.
it's probably, for some people, sadly, it's sometimes easier to tell me what you're not good at.
Yeah.
Tell me what
Yeah,
you feel
we're
is a
always
weakness.
so critical on ourselves.
We are, right?
Thank
So
you.
tell me what, you bet, have a good one. So tell me what your weaknesses are.
Sometimes I lose my motivation.
Okay?
Just,
Why?
I don't know.
Are you not succeeding? Or are you just lack the enthusiasm, the energy? What is it?
Because I see, just a comparison, that's a big problem that I see. We live in a culture where everyone compares.
Yes.
And so it creates just sometimes
Yes.
just a mindset where people get sad and
Yep.
kind of drags them down.
You're quoting Gary Vee all day long. It's all he talks about is quit looking at everybody else. Quit looking at your friends who they're all faking whether they're
I
doing
still
well.
need to read that book.
I know, right? Well, we'll get around to it. We're trying to get a censored version here because he does have the language. But literally, it's all talking about quit comparing, quit looking at your friends who he says, quit looking at your friends whose goals probably aren't your exact goals, or whose talents aren't your talents. You're comparing something that shouldn't matter, right?
Yeah, honestly.
So, okay, keeping your motivation,
Yeah.
not wasting time looking at other people.
Yeah.
What else? What else do you think is a weakness?
Not like wasting time. That's a big one for me. I feel like because it's too easy. Where I'll just be sitting there and I'm just like, I'm gonna start thinking about one thing and I just go like, oh, squirrel, and I just go off on that little thing in my mind for 30 minutes, and there goes
Does that happen when you're working on something that you love? Like, think of something, a hobby, not even work, just something you really enjoy, whether it's a video game or something you really enjoy. Think of, like, if you love, say you loved Candy Crush. Your guy probably don't love Candy Crush, I don't know.
I haven't played a video game like
But say there's something like that, and when you're doing that, do you lose focus too? Or is it just when you're trying to do something that maybe isn't as natural and what you really want to be doing?
Exactly.
Right? So I think these are one of the reasons that he kind of harps on this whole find something you love, because you're not going to be distracted because you're going, man, this is dull, this is boring, this is not where I want to be. I would say, I think another strength that you have found, at least by experience, is you went from not being able to do Spanish at all to now being fluent. And I mean, that's a huge thing, right? So you were saying to me yesterday that you know that math has always been a challenge, but now you're like, if I can do Spanish, why can't I do math?
Yeah.
Why self-limiting beliefs?
Yeah, like that was the big thing I figured out there in Argentina. Like, learning Spanish was like one of those things where I'd put, like, learning a complete another language for me was one of those walls that I put, that I said to myself, comparing, saying, you're not like anyone else, you can't do that, that's impossible. And then actually learning it and kind of getting to the point where I feel comfortable enough to communicate with everyone and understanding, it was kind of an eye-opener for me now, because it's like, well, wait, I failed that in junior high. I had a teacher tell me I would never learn Spanish. First off, that's awesome, because I can go look at him in the eye and tell him, hey, I know Spanish now.
But you can say it in Spanish to him.
Exactly, that's what I want to do.
You need to.
But even better, it's opened my eyes up to the concept of, maybe my whole life I've been putting up these fake barriers, telling myself, hey, you can't do this, when actually it's just I just wasn't motivated enough to try and pursue that goal.
You have to believe it, and you also have to want it enough, right? I mean, out there, you didn't want it in school. When you were out there, eventually, you had to want it enough for survival. It was like, this is going to be a rough 2 years if I don't know what anyone's saying.
That's exactly true. It was kind of a do or die for like about the first 6 months, but after that, it was just more of like, well, do I want to be able to grow my knowledge in this and get to a certain level, or do I just want to keep the basic just so I can find out where the bathroom is?
Right? And that's going to be the story of life. Everything, and that's the thing about entrepreneurship. You often, you set your risk level, but whatever business you're in, you set that baseline, and then you kind of have to jump at some point. So when you're jumping, you're committing to, I got to feed my family, take care of myself, whatever it is you're doing, and that's a whole scary thing. So I can tell you one of the things you're really good at. When Bridger got back from his mission, we flew out and watched him do his presentation to his congregation there, and he did an amazing job of public speaking.
Yeah, they called it homecoming.
Homecoming, very nice. It was a wonderful homecoming, and his talk was just fantastic. And that is not a skill that a lot of people have. I mean, it was funny, it was touching, it was upbeat. Everyone was on the edge of their seats, and I can tell you, when you have that as a skill. I went to college at Abilene Christian when I was 18. Well, I was 17 when I went, and my teacher in speech, I'd never had a speech class before. He said, you should really consider making speech a major. And I remember thinking, I never looked through the want ads before and seen somebody who wants a speech maker. What kind of job's that, you know? Of course, little did I realize it's really just how to communicate. But then again, I also don't think you need college for that. I think that is an innate skill that you've now honed. You've taken something that maybe you didn't know was a talent, and by being on your feet for 2 years out talking to people, you have honed an ability to talk off the cuff, right?
Was I taking a bite and you asked
just
me on the spot?
nod. You can nod, yes.
Yeah.
But I think those are some strengths that you are really going to appreciate when you get into school, and didn't know probably that you had. I mean, you had a little bit. I saw you do, you know, because you got the Senate body deal, and you had to do presentations for that. So you already had some skills going there.
There was someone was trying to stand in front of the whole school. That was scary.
It is scary, right? Until you do this all the time. I have to stop in certain sections here. But guys, I hope, we're here at the office now. We got to start the AC media meeting. Got lots going on today. But I thought y'all would get a kick out of this. And if nothing else, this is now memorialized forever for you to look back yearly and see what your growth has been. So you guys let us know what it is that you're struggling with, or what it is you're celebrating. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.
Ciao.